Hey, this is Philip with the Eagle Eye podcast, and today's episode is all about the use of your smartphones. I remember a few years ago when it all started that everyone had a smartphone, and there were always discussions about how young people use their phones too much, and our parents and teachers were super concerned about us getting addicted to our phones. Now in college, using your phone responsibly is one of the things you have to manage on your own. To talk about two different approaches, I have two students of Reinhardt University as my guests. Hi Kamille and hi Aaron, and thanks for being here.
Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for having us.
We're talking about the phone usage of students in general, but especially about the phone usage of my two guests. Kamille, can you tell our listeners why you are a guest in our podcast today?
So I'm here because I have a flip phone, which is the total opposite of having a smartphone.
Why did you decide to get a flip phone?
So I've been wanting a flip phone since 9th grade. So I had my first smartphone, and I was like, this is not my cup of tea. I like talking to people face to face, and I don't like having a bunch of people's numbers. So I was just like, I don't really want this. But my parents told me no. And they made me have a flip phone, not a smartphone, for a longer period of time.
Why do you think your parents decided that?
Oh, my mom told me. She told me that she didn't want me to be made fun of. So, yeah, it's just funny because it's usually the kid who says that, not the parent. But
Yeah, it's usually the other way around, isn't it?
yeah.
So, what do you tell your mother? Why do you say, hey, I still want to keep my flip phone?
Why? Okay, so I would tell people and they'd be like, why would you want that? And I just wanted to, I don't know, not disconnect, but actually not be so bombarded by people and by like information. Because when I had a smartphone, I would use it for like research, and that's great. But if I'm trying to learn about the world, it's better to actually learn about the world by experiencing it instead of trying to experience it through
So you
research.
would say what you enjoy most about not having a smartphone is the connection to the real world more than just a digital world. And are there situations where you feel like you would need a smartphone?
Well, I do have a smartphone. Yeah. So I have like two phones. But the only reason I have a smartphone is for directions. So I don't use it for anything else. So if I need to go to a different place that I don't know, I just use it for directions.
Okay, so you basically have a navigation device
I'm a tracker.
in form of a smartphone.
I have two phones.
Say, relax, Kevin Gates.
You were an RA last year,
Yeah.
and you told me about how you had to use a group chat app called GroupMe to communicate with other RAs.
Yeah.
How did you feel about being online and being in touch with everyone constantly? Was it a big change for you?
Yes. I deleted that group chat immediately. And actually people were concerned that like, and they would try to throw my little phone under the bus. It was like, you don't have GroupMe on your phone. I do. I can get GroupMe on my phone. I can get Cash App on my phone. I don't do Cash App. But but yeah, so it was a lot. It was a lot to handle people constantly texting back and forth when I like kind of silence, So I deleted them immediately.
Did you have the notifications on your phone on? Did you?
Yeah, I got
you
the
probably
buzz.
had to keep up with the chat. So
Yeah.
did it stress you out?
Yes. But yeah, so that was very stressful.
Aaron, as you can see, we know why Kamille is our guest today. Why do you think we asked you to join us?
So I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. I spend a lot of my time on the phone. My company, my organization, Toka, runs everything technology-wise. So we have all of our time schedules, lessons, everything that's booked out for the rest of the day on the cellular device. And that is everything else. Most of my time I spend on there is for YouTube, trying to be more for research reasons, exactly like Kamille, but most of the time it doesn't work that way. I try to stay away from most of the social media apps, especially for the same reason, that disconnect, but it is definitely a hard task. Especially like Phil, what you were saying with the notifications, it is so easy to fall into that trap of as soon as you feel that on your phone, just tapping that button, falling right into it. What I hate the most is like, take Facebook for example. If you're on like at the same time, you have that green light, and somebody tries to message me, I'm just like, get right off it. I was like, I'm sorry, I have plans.
Just got off.
Yeah, I just landed.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, like put myself on blast. I see text message, I just close my phone and put it away. That doesn't mean I don't love people. I love people to death. I just, like I do face to face. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, and I found that interesting as well, because especially someone that's constantly on their phone. I mean, Phil's seen the screen time whenever we go on away trips, man. We're racking up the hours, like for an 8-hour trip, man. I'm always on there. So I always wonder what it was like to kind of possibly disconnect. So I find it very interesting to have you in here.
Yeah.
And so I'm really intrigued to see if there's kind of like, how do I explain it? More of like nothing that they say kind of affects it, but making a bigger aspect of having a flip phone rather than a smartphone, because there's always like that typical norm, and I assume this is what the whole thing's for, just everybody having a smartphone. So whenever it comes to the difference, does that make it a little bit more difficult or anything like that with talking to people? Because there's always like, there's a screen that people can not necessarily hide from, but it's a lot easier to communicate through iMessage or anything like that, where you could just type it, send, boom, gone.
Yeah, I think there is a difficulty. I mean, especially because, like, I don't think I'm better than anyone else because I spend a lot of time on my computer. That's YouTube. Come on. Anyway, but no, I think there is, like, a kind of, I don't know, it does become a harder issue, and it's not a me issue. It's more like a both party issue. It's like, how do I communicate to that person who doesn't have a smartphone? And then I'm just like, how do I communicate to people who are always on their phone or have social media when I've never had social media type of thing? So it's just like this disconnect, and that, but I try to look past it and try to like get to know people, and sometimes that fails a lot. Because people say lingo stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
Oh, yeah, especially with all, like, the social media trendings and all that fun stuff, trying to keep up. I mean, I can't even keep up with that. I'll check, like, a week later. I'm like, what is this? So I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
I experienced this yesterday. I made a reference to a Vine. Probably most of the people know, and I said it as a joke, and you didn't react, and I was like, oh, sorry, I forgot. You probably don't know it.
Yeah.
But yeah, have you felt this disconnect from pop culture, I would say, in regards of social media before? Is this a constant thing where, for example, you don't know a meme, you don't know a Vine, you maybe have problems keeping up with people talking about TikToks or, I don't know, maybe Reels on Instagram?
Yeah, trying to have that common ground.
Sometimes, but I think, I mean, I like to know what's going on in the world. That's just I have research, that's all I do. But, so I kind of keep up indirectly, and a lot of stuff pops back into YouTube, so I'm just like, oh, a year later, like, did you see that video? And everyone's like, that came out a year ago, Kamille. I'm like, okay, cool. So, yeah, what was I going to say? But, yeah, there is kind of a disconnect, but I like history, and so I like the past, and so I really like study culture from like the past, like the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now it sounds like I'm talking about the radio station. But so I do keep up in that aspect, but like nowadays, because everything's so fast, I don't keep up. I just can't keep up. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's just too much.
You have talked a lot about how you get disconnected from the real world through technology, but also about how you get disconnected from the digital world. Do you think you made the right choice with not having a smartphone?
I think it's helping me more connect, but not connect in a way that people think. Like, I can notice when people are like I think everyone can notice when someone's sad, but I can just see it and be like, okay, something's going on. Let me talk to that person. So it's like I connect on a different level, but not like in the way that other people want to connect. And sometimes people don't want to connect on the things I want to connect on, which is like, how are you doing? How's the life going? People don't want to talk about that because I feel like social media, I'm not trying to poo-poon, social media, but I just feel like it just masks a lot of things. And so, and if you don't want to talk about what's really going on in your life, only way you can relate is what's the word? If you're masking everything that's going on and everyone else is kind of masking what's going on in their life, they can relate to the social media aspect or like the commonality of that. And if I'm trying to get to who you are, you don't want to talk about that. I think that's best to disconnect. So, and it's kind of hard because my sister, okay, this has nothing to do with what I just said, but my sister, she doesn't have a smartphone. She's 13, and like she just so wants to get into TikTok and this and that. And it's so funny because there's this disconnect with her, me and her, or her and I, where I try to act cool and she's like, Kamille, just stop. It's like, I'm cool. Yeah, so.
You're like the parent. She says, you don't even know what that is.
Literally. Yeah, literally, yeah. Yeah. So, like, I guess I'm now becoming the interviewer. I'm sorry, but what would y'all do? This is my, job description. What would y'all do, like, in the future if you have kids? Because I know technology is going to be much different and more terrifying and invasive. So, what would y'all do?
So personally, I think the way my parents handled it was actually pretty great. Of course, like I'm on my phone all the time now, but when I was younger, so I traveled a lot for soccer. I was constantly not with my parents. I was going off with friends, going to all sorts of different places around the U.S. So my parents decided to get me a flip phone. And I had that flip phone for, I'd say about a solid 3-4 years. And I think I got my first one when I was 9, which is ridiculous. But I still begged and pleaded for one, so they got me a prepaid cell flip phone. And I thought I was the coolest guy in the world. So if I could change one thing, it'd probably be just to give my son a flip phone first, so that way they can ease themselves into it, because if I give them a smartphone right away, they're going to be on that thing 24/7. I mean, you see kids nowadays like, oh, Mommy, I want my iPad. I need something to play while I wait. Well, why can't you just wait? Learning that responsibility.
Probably one of the worst parts, and that's what I wanted to answer. I would never give my kid any technological device or personal device under the age of 10 or 12, because people, or kids especially, they need time to think. You remember when we were sitting in cars and you saw that raindrop
my days,
going down the
all
window,
the way down.
and you go watch it down the window.
Oh, yes.
These are moments you need as a kid. Or just sitting in there and maybe listening to the radio or listening to conversations of your parents. I mean, kids these days, they don't listen to conversations of their parents. They're in the car 45 minutes, they have headphones, they have their iPad, they watch some, I don't know, fish TV shows or
Baby Shark, whatever.
Yeah, and they don't know what's going on. I think it's pretty valuable, even if you're not talking to your parents as a child, which is important as well, talking to them, but just listening to conversations or listening to other people, or just having a moment where you think for yourself. Children these days, they don't think anymore. Because they don't have time to think.
Yeah,
they go from one episode to another. They go from the tablet to the phone to the TV. I mean, I watched TV as a kid. Everyone watched TV as a kid.
I watched a lot.
But it was, but still, you have time to think in between. When you go to school, when you come back, when you're sitting in the car, when you... Just these random situations where children these days don't have a break.
So I actually wanted to mention something. This might blow my mind for a second, but have y'all ever watched Nickelodeon before? I assume as a kid. Do y'all remember when we were younger that they did the 30 minutes of play where they literally stopped having the TV going and it was literally just a blank screen saying go outside and play? And now we have nothing like that. Or the biggest restriction kids have nowadays is Netflix. You used to watching? Yes, please. Like there's no chance of getting that. Like no kids want to go outside anymore. They want to stay inside where it's comfortable, which I mean I don't blame them. I can understand that, but that's, as kids they have to experience that because that's what you grow up on. When you look back at your life, you want to see what you did. And if you're just looking at a screen 24/7, how can you be happy with that?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think to connect back to your question, that is probably one of the biggest part. I would never give them a phone before 10 or 12. But I feel like they need a phone afterwards because the disconnection, the digital disconnection you talked about, I think is going to get bigger and bigger.
Yes.
And it's not us deciding. It's not us saying, hey, Facebook or Meta, you can't come up with your metaverse. It's not a decision we as users can make. I mean, obviously the group of users could make it, but it's not an individual decision. So we kind of have to adapt to this new world and to this new trend of getting more disconnected in our online world. But I feel like the kids at a certain point need to be in this world because jobs change, the school changes. Probably our kids are probably in school with, I don't know,
Oculus.
Yeah.
My kids will be homeschooled though.
Virtual reality.
Yeah, VR and stuff like that.
They probably sit back home with glasses on and talking to their teacher in a digital time.
Who's saying teacher's a robot?
So, I mean, it's not that far away. How many people learn languages on Duolingo?
Yeah.
It's nothing else than talking to an algorithm or to an AI.
Sorry.
But so I feel like you can't avoid the exposure to technology, but I would wait as long as possible and just let them play outside, as you said, and as Nickelodeon said.
He just looked at his
15 years
screen.
ago. Aaron just checked his Apple Watch.
I was going to say, that puts the nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah, that's okay. No, but I think it also deals with like building community. Who are the people around you? And not just people around your age, like people who are older, younger. It's important to build that community.
I think that is what we are looking for, a community where you can be yourself and where we can actually be real and not just some online chat. It sounds like a lot of us could find this if they just spend less time in front of the screens.
Mm-hmm. But I think the beauty is like when I flip up my phone, I'm like, people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want, like I've always wanted. And it's like, if you have that desire in your heart, try it. Like, get off social media if you can. Like, just try little by little. Because I feel like more and more people are waking up and they're like, oh, I don't like being on my phone. I don't like the fact that I'm on my apps all the time. So I just think, like, people say they don't like it, but it's just like you can choose to not do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's
And I
harder
think-
nowadays because it's morphed.
I think it's very important what you said, little by little.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the message we wanna highlight from this episode is I think there is a way to get away from this over excessive use of social media, and it doesn't have to be from 100 to 0. No one asks you to buy a flip phone, Aaron, and
I'll do it right now. I promise.
delete all of your social media. No, maybe it's 1 hour less of screen time. Maybe it's a time limit on certain apps. Maybe it's just not checking your phone every 5 minutes. And maybe that helps. And I feel like there is a chance to overcome these threats for the future where people disconnect more and more. And I feel like there are still ways for us to achieve a future where we still talk to each other or write letters, as in your case and my case when I'm back in Europe.
Dear Kamille, how's life?
I was going to say, can I get in on those letters? That sounds pretty amazing.
That's cool. That's
Fun
cool.
fact,
That's
though,
a cool
okay,
fact.
I know it's totally off subject because I've looked into it because I actually really want to go like dark. Like, no, you can't contact me. But pigeons, they can
No.
travel 100 miles and you know how to go home. Like, if you throw them up in the air, they'll come back home. Literally 100 miles or 50 miles, yeah.
Do you
If I
think they're
ever saw a pigeon-
overseas pigeons? We need a hawk or a falcon or something.
Maybe.
I would be terrified. One, if I ever saw a pigeon coming my way, like directly towards me, I don't know what I would do. But if I saw a little letter in there, I would probably think I'm in a movie of some sort and be like,
I
oh,
think that would
somebody
be
did
one
that
of my
for me.
happiest moments in life if a pigeon flies in my hand and delivers me a letter
I'd probably cry. I'm not
from
gonna lie.
Kamille.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
Sup?
We're still using text language. That's
Yeah.
funny.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I appreciate you for your time. That was fun. That was very informative, and I think we got some pretty valuable lessons
Well,
out of
thank
this.
you.